Japan is an amazing and unique country full of wonderful people, beautiful landscapes, and historic architecture. So when Zach and I were looking for an exciting trip to plan, Japan was at the top of our list. From exploring Tokyo and climbing Mount Fuji to driving up the coast and even riding a pirate ship, here's our story about our adventures in Japan. Starting at the Richmond International Airport, we took a commuter jet to Atlanta, and from there, an exhausting 14-hour flight into Tokyo, landing at the Haneda International Airport. Since Tokyo wasn't really our first destination, we just grabbed a business hotel in a ward called Oda City near the airport. The next morning, after checking out a few sites around Tokyo, we hopped on the Shinkansen to head to our first actual destination for this trip, Kyoto. To learn more about Japanese history and culture, we scheduled 3 days in Kyoto as the first stop on our itinerary. The city is located to the southwest of Tokyo and is known as the cultural capital of Japan. We stepped off the Shinkansen into Kyoto Station, a 13-story structure full of shops, museums, hotels, and gardens, and the impression of Kyoto only got better from there. We even had some time before checking into our hotel, so we took the afternoon to visit Kinkakuji, also known as the Golden Pavilion. Kinkakuji is a temple with its upper levels completely coated in gold leaf. It was originally a retirement villa for a prominent shogun, but it was converted to a temple upon his death in the year 1408. On a cloudless day, the reflection of sunlight off the gold leaf makes the building look like it's glowing. Day 2 in Kyoto started off a bit rough as we missed our stop on the metro line heading to the Gion Matsuri. The Gion Matsuri is the most famous festival in Japan, taking place over the entire month of July. This day was the first of 2 parades, and the only one we'd be in town for. Unfortunately for everyone, a heat wave put a bit of a damper on the event. Even with the heat though, it was a really cool event to see, with the performers showing off cultural dances and huge traditional parade floats called hokko rolling down the street. To give you some perspective on these clips, hokko weigh nearly 12 tons and can reach up to 25 meters high. We were pretty tired of being outdoors after standing in 100-degree weather for hours, so we decided to spend the rest of the day exploring Kyoto Station and called it an early night. Thankfully, we had a peaceful start to our 3rd day in Kyoto with a visit to one of our favorite places in Japan, Fushimi Inari. Famous for its 10,000 torii gates, Fushimi Inari is a Shinto shrine dedicated to the god of rice. Starting from the base of the mountain at 5 a.m., we spent a few meditative hours walking the maze of shrines and torii gates, only running into a few locals here and there. It was one of the most amazing experiences we had, and Zach and I both agree that our early morning trip to Fushimi Inari was our favorite single adventure on this trip. Our next stop for the day was a temple called Kiyomizu-dera, or the Temple of Pure Water. It's a Buddhist temple, originally founded in the year 780, and rests on the site of the Atowa waterfall, from which it derives its name. This temple offers beautiful views of Kyoto, and we thoroughly enjoyed walking around, even though it was a little crowded. Our last experience for the day was a ramen cooking class. Now, I have a lot of other things to cover, so I'll just say that it was fun and it was delicious. On our final full day in Kyoto, we again woke up early enough to catch the first train out of the station heading to Arashiyama and the famous bamboo grove. There's no specific history I could find on the grove itself, but it is very clearly an old and mature bamboo forest. Once again, our jet lag proved useful, and we were mostly alone in our early morning adventure. The other scheduled activity we had for the day was canceled, which gave us the opportunity to just walk around and stumble on other cool places. We came across some beautiful scenery, some shrines, and even an outdoor exhibit called the Kimono Forest, which showcased a bunch of ornate kimono fabrics. We also took some time to do some souvenir shopping. Before departing Kyoto the next morning, we took the time to visit the Higashi Honganji Temple. Located in the heart of Kyoto, this Buddhist temple was established in 1602 and is still the head temple of the Shinshu Otani-ha Buddhist sect today. After that, we grabbed some breakfast and bid farewell to Kyoto. For the next leg of our adventure, we rented a car in Maibara, then headed up towards the Echizen coast off the Sea of Japan to kick off our road trip. The Echizen coast is well known worldwide for its crabbing industry. Even if you couldn't see the fishing boats, the crabbing history is obvious here, with many towns adorning their buildings with crab-like designs. None do it better than the first stop on our drive, the Echizen Crab Museum. This museum showcases crabs from all over the world, and not only does it contain more crabs than I even knew existed, the entire building is shaped like a crab. We couldn't help but check it out. Even though I could only easily read the bathroom and exit signs, I really enjoyed my time here. It's just a goofy place, mostly for children, but if you're looking for somewhere to stretch your legs on a car trip, it's a great choice. After the Crab Museum, we headed up to see the Ominato Shrine on Oshima. The island shrine is dedicated to the protection of those who make their living from the sea. That said, the popular urban lore is that the island is haunted, so go there at your own risk. Kanazawa, also dubbed Little Kyoto, was our next stop. The city is known for its beautiful gardens and historic architecture, and I wish I could say that I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, between getting lost a few times and stopping to check out some cool roadside views, we got there as the places that we wanted to see were closing. While there's a ton to do in Kanazawa, we were only passing through, so we didn't have time to improvise. And so it was on to Joetsu, where we'd be spending the night. Joetsu was a neat little city, and we took some time to walk around downtown and eat our breakfast in the park before heading out to Kurobe Dam and Tateyama. Located in the mountains of the Toyama Prefecture and standing at 610 feet high, the Kurobe Dam is the tallest in Japan. The dam has been featured in multiple movies and is a popular tourist destination. Adding to its allure, the dam is part of the Tateyama Kurobe Alpine Route. This unique traverse requires hiking, cable cars, ropeways, and a lot of stairs to make it to the top. Zach and I ventured up the route to Muroto Station, which sits at just over 8,000 feet of elevation and is just below the summit of Tateyama. The alpine meadow was absolutely beautiful, even though we had some cloud cover. The best part about this destination, though, was that the temperature was about 30 degrees cooler than Kyoto. After working our way back to the car, we headed off to Nagano, where we'd spend the second night of our road trip. I wish we could have spent more time in Nagano, and while we couldn't stay long, we did take the morning to visit the Zenkoji Temple, or the Temple of Benevolent Light. Founded in the 7th century, this temple is also home to the Hibutsu, rumored to be the first Buddha statue to ever be brought into Japan. Within the temple's main building, there's an underground hallway in pitch black, with no lights allowed inside. It's said that if you find and touch the key to paradise attached to a wall within the passageway, you're granted salvation. After exploring the complex and speaking with some of the volunteers to learn more about the history of the temple, we were off again to wander the roadways of Japan, this time heading for Matsumoto and its famous castle. Our whole reason for this stop was to explore the grounds of Fukashi Castle, nicknamed the Crow Castle after its black exterior. The castle was built in the 1500s and was designated as a National Historic Site in 1930. Today, the castle houses a museum, which allows visitors to explore the rooms of the keep in their original condition. It also displays a history of the arms and armor used throughout the castle's history. For lunch, we spent some time at the farmer's market and stopped by a food truck to split an Oreo crepe. After some exploring, we moved on to the city of Takayama. For our third night on the road, we chose to stay at a ryokan, or traditional Japanese inn. Lodging at a ryokan usually includes sleeping on tatami mats and futons, hot spring baths, and fantastic food. The proprietor of ours was very welcoming, and she did make an amazing breakfast. The big draw to Takayama for us was the Hida Folk Village. It's an open-air museum, much like the colonial reenactment towns that can be found around the US. Some of the museum's buildings are 200 years old, and each home here showcases what traditional rural living was like in Japan. They also had an exhibit for toys, which we may have spent too much time at, and we had to take some time to feed the fish in the pond. And with that, it was time to head back east towards Fuji Kawaguchiko and our impending hike up Mount Fuji. From our hotel that night, we could see Fuji waiting for our arrival. Mount Fuji is the tallest mountain in Japan. It's one of the 3 Japanese holy mountains, and it's an active stratocone volcano. With a summit over 12,000 feet high, it cuts an imposing figure over the surrounding landscape. We were up and on our way early, making it just in time to catch the 6 a.m. shuttle to the Subashiri Route trailhead. This climb was challenging but awe-inspiring. We had clear views straight to the top, as well as the surrounding countryside for the entire trek. We took a slow and steady pace up to the 7th station, where we had a hut booked to spend the night. Unfortunately, this is where my journey up Mount Fuji ended. My altitude sickness medication was creating painful tingling in my limbs that I just couldn't keep hiking with. The next morning, Zach finished the climb with my blessing while I hung out at our hut and enjoyed the scenery from there. Thankfully, I was in good enough shape to descend by the time he'd returned, so off we went. Now, the descent on this trail is known as a sand run. It's a deep sand route that requires more of a controlled slide than a walk to get down. It was a blast. We took a tumble or two, but that was half the fun. Back at the trailhead, we grabbed some celebratory ice cream cones and waited for the bus. After returning to our car, we headed straight for the hotel, ordered room service, and went to bed early. We probably should have spent the next day recovering, but we had more to see, and one final stop to make on our road trip: Hakone. Hakone, once a busy stop for samurai and other travelers of the Tokaido Road in the 1600s, is now a bustling and vibrant hot spring town on the banks of Lake Ashi, near the base of Mount Fuji. We checked out a lot of places in Hakone. Our favorite, though, was definitely our journey to Owakudani. Our route first had us cruising the length of Lake Ashi on a pirate ship replica, which provided us with some great views of the town and the surrounding landscape. Now, I wanted to know some history here, because there is absolutely no reason for these ships to be on an inland lake in Japan. And it turns out, someone just decided that if they dropped some pirate ships there, people would ride them. And they were absolutely right. Riding one of these ships was definitely amusing, and it was popular. Once off the boat, we headed for the Hakone ropeway and the Owakudani sulfur vents. This landscape was created by a volcanic eruption over 3,000 years ago, and is one of the major sources of water for the onsen in Hakone. Unfortunately, the hiking trails here are currently closed due to volcanic activity, but we still had a lot of fun checking out the area from a safe distance and walking through the geology museum. After grabbing some food and checking out a few more sites around Hakone, we were off to Odawara to return the car and catch our Shinkansen back to Tokyo for the last part of our adventure. Tokyo needs no introduction. It's Tokyo. And we spent 3 full days here to make sure we really had some time to explore the world's largest city. We kicked off our first day with a private guide meeting us by our hotel in Shinjuku. Iwata-san was awesome. She showed us around a ton of shrines, parks, and neighborhoods off the usual tourist path. She also took us through some of her favorite local shopping districts, demonstrated how to pray at a temple, how to correctly enter a shrine through a torii gate, and even helped Zach introduce me to sushi. Finally, she dropped us off in the afternoon at Tokyo Skytree Tower. We did some shopping in the Pokemon store and a few other spots, then finished off the day with dinner at the Final Fantasy Cafe. We had a jam-packed itinerary for our second day in Tokyo. We kicked it off with a stop at the famous staircase from the movie Your Name. Then some exploring and shopping around Odaiba City, including the Gundam store. Unfortunately, no pictures were allowed there. Our favorite stop of the day, though, was an art exhibit called Team Lab Planets. It's a fully immersive experience where you can become part of the artwork and interact with everything. It was incredibly unique. Absolutely one of our favorite stops in Tokyo. We finished off the day by grabbing some drinks on a rooftop bar to do some people watching at Shibuya Crossing. Our last full day in Tokyo was mostly a shopping day. We spent a lot of time in the shops around Akihabara. However, we did take a few minutes to explore a derelict building full of old rusty vending machines. Most of them just held very stale food and toys. A few, however, contained little white boxes with stories written on them. The one that I got talked about how onion factories are causing global warming, which made for quite the entertaining read. That night was the final big event we had planned for our trip. The Sumidagawa Fireworks Festival, Tokyo's biggest fireworks display. Because of COVID, this festival was being held for the first time in a few years, and everyone was there for it. It's estimated that over 1 million people watched the fireworks with us that night. How cool is that? We didn't get to the festival crazy early to reserve spots, so we didn't get a great viewing spot, but we could still see just fine. Our final morning in Japan was a relaxing one. We woke up with plenty of time to stroll through the gardens of the Imperial Palace and take in the beauty of Japan one last time before catching our flight home. We were so sad to leave, but not to worry, we'll be back. Mount Fuji and I have a score to settle.